Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is going to be my volume 2 of the top 10 B-movie horror films that you may have missed within the last few years. I actually did a list of this some time ago, so this is going to be a completely different top 10. Another 10 movies that may have escaped your notice that I'll go through with you. They're mainly horror. There are a couple of exceptions, but we'll go through it. This is my personal pick, so obviously I'd love to know what your top 10 is, or if you've seen any of these. So let's get started with number 10. And number 10, believe it or not, is actually an asylum movie. Yes, I'm talking about the company Asylum, not in an asylum. This one is called Ghost Hunters, and it's obviously a kind of a rip-off, if you like, or a mockbuster of the Ghostbusters 2016 movie. But I tell you, this one is a lot of fun. It has a definite James Wan feel to it. It's a kinetic kind of like action horror movie with some pretty good visuals for obviously for a low budget film. I really like the director here, Reginald Perry-Teo, I think his name is. I think it's pretty good. He's done some good stuff in the past, if you ask me, and it has a definite visual flair, despite the fact that it's an asylum picture. But it is number 10, so let's have a look at number 9. Number 9 is actually going to be the first of the kind of what arguably is non-horror. This one is actually, this is the French version that I've got. The actual name that most people may know this as is Kill Command, and this is really more of a sci-fi film, but I would say it has horror elements. This is the French steelbook, so I wanted to get this one because it's the only steelbook that's available in France. It's called Identify. It's actually a movie with a very similar plot to that of the werewolf movie Dog Soldiers. Essentially, we have a group of military types go on a training exercise on a kind of very remote area to discover an unknown enemy, and this time it's robots, killer robots. It's pretty violent. I guess it has horror elements with it, but it's definitely pretty good. They've got some good practical effects here of the robots and stuff, and it's a pretty decent kind of action sci-fi movie. Next up is probably one of the ones most people would have heard about if you are a horror fan, and this is Hallow. This is a British werewolf movie that takes place on a train. So it gets stranded essentially in a remote wilderness area in the UK, and the train is attacked by werewolf-like creatures. This is actually a German media book. I do actually have, just in case you're not familiar with it, I do have the regular Blu-ray as well, so that's what that looks like. But this is, obviously, I like this movie, so I wanted to get a nice limited edition of it. But it's a decent horror movie, I think. I know a lot of people don't like the werewolves in it. I actually didn't have a problem with them, to be honest. I kind of like this movie. There you go, Howl. This one is the German release of, this obviously is called Killer Beach. The actual movie is, in most countries, simply called The Sand. And it's kind of a killer creature feature. There was actually a horror film that the name escapes me some time ago now that had Blood Beach. That was it. That actually had a similar concept. We have sort of creatures in the sand. They are CGI, but I've got to say it's a lot of fun, and it's quite a fun concept that we have this group of teens basically get stuck in the sand, and there's this kind of like squid-like creature. They touch the sand, they're going to get swallowed up. Yeah, very much like the movie Blood Beach, almost like a kind of unofficial remake, if you like. I really enjoyed it. So, called The Sand, anywhere else other than Germany, but this one in German, only version I can get on Blu-ray, Killer Beach. This one is the other kind of non-horror movie, but it does have horror elements to it, and I'll explain why in just a second. This one called 68 Kill. This is actually quite a recent movie, and I guess is more of a action movie, but it's one of these kind of stylistic, kind of like auteur type movies, very much like kind of you would imagine your Robert Rodriguez or your Tarantino sort of style. Kind of like True Romance to a lot of ways. It essentially follows this kind of hapless guy as he ends up having to follow around his kind of psychopathic girlfriend there as she commits crime after crime, ends up with a couple of other kind of femme fatales as well. It does have a serial killer element in it, and there is actually quite a lot of violence and gore in this. I really like this movie. It's such a fun movie. considering how violent it is. Both the lead characters, the guy is so hapless, he's just absolutely adorable, and the girl who plays the main female, beautiful but absolutely psychotic, and she plays it brilliantly. So I really enjoyed that movie. 68 kill, quite a recent one. This one is called The Hallow. I believe this is an Irish film, and this one focuses on a small family, two adults and a young kid, as they move to basically a rural part of Ireland, right next to a kind of a forestry area, and it appears that they are not alone. There seems to be some type of almost fairy folk living in the forest that lay siege to their kind of small farmhouse. Great creature feature, great aesthetics, some tense moments here and some quite imaginative creature designs. Really enjoyed this one, and yeah, definitely check out The Hallow. Next one for me is another quite recent movie that I reviewed on the channel here. This is It Stains the Sand Red. You can see all the reviews for these actually on the channel somewhere or another. This one is a zombie movie with a little bit of a difference. It essentially follows this woman as she is stranded in the desert, pursued by one singular zombie. And it's essentially a survival horror with her having to try and overcome, you know, starvation. She doesn't have anything to drink. There's the elements, and obviously we have this kind of relentless zombie that's after her as well, that she can't ever really slow down. It's an interesting movie that actually plays with the genre a little bit and kind of gives it a bit of an original twist, and it's a very interesting kind of relationship between the woman and her kind of like her zombie kind of pursuer. So it's definitely worth a watch if you're a zombie fan. I do feel it adds some original blood into the genre. This one is called The Dead Room, and this was, I believe it's from New Zealand, and is a pretty good haunted house movie. If you like movies like The Conjuring and that type of thing, I would definitely recommend The Dead Room. It's got Jed Brophy in it, who you may know from Peter Jackson's early days. It's basically it follows a trio of paranormal investigators as they are kind of sent to this house, which has driven the occupants out, and discover there's a paranormal menace there. But all this, it's not, you know, there's things that happen, obviously, without spoiling anything, that will kind of be a few twists and turns and stuff like that. I thought the actual ambience and the kind of the sense of creepiness and dread was really good. And I actually thought the characters were very well played and acted in a realistic and quite professional manner. I don't like it when you sometimes, you know, you have these sort of type of characters and they're acting like idiots. The three of these characters all act like they are professionals, which I thought was really good and kind of a little bit different. One here which may be a little divisive, but I thought this was a very good movie. This is a found footage film called Jerusalem, and essentially it follows this kind of American student, I think she is. She basically travels to Jerusalem and then ends up kind of witnessing this kind of demonic rising. All these kind of creatures are kind of rising up. I thought it's very well done, and for the low budget, I thought the effects here are really, really good and quite striking. And there's some interesting stuff that happens. Obviously, with found footage, you know, you're never seeing loads of stuff on screen, but I thought it was really good, and you know, a different kind of found footage movie with some different kind of antagonists. You'll see a few different types of demonic entities here. Really like this movie. I like the fact that it was filmed in this kind of location. It's fantastic, personally. Number one for me is probably one that I think most horror film fans will be familiar with, but I kind of will say, because this may have had a small theatrical run, but I don't think it's really a straight to DVD or Blu-ray one. Autopsy of Jane Doe. Really, really spooky, atmospheric kind of horror film. Essentially tells the story of two morgue attendants as they are basically doing the autopsy on this kind of like unidentified woman. However, it appears that she has had some kind of supernatural influence, shall we say, and spooky stuff starts happening. There is some fantastic, absolutely fantastic spooky shenanigans that go on, and the performances by our two leads here. With some, you've got Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox here. So you've got some veteran actors there. Give fantastic performances. So that is my top 10 volume 2 of my favourite kind of straight to Blu-ray, straight to DVD or VOD movies that are released in the kind of the last kind of few years. I'll see if I can leave a link to volume 1 in the description if you want to check them out for 10 more great films. And thanks for watching. What was your favourite out of these films? Have you seen any of these? Have my descriptions made you want to see any of them? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.